Imagine you have gone for a movie and it turns out to be a very boring movie.
Okay.
Do you get up and walk out, or do you sit through it?
Sit through it.
Right?
Suffer through it.
Suffer through it because you paid for it and you want to...
Oh yes, that also. Also
Yeah.
because I was responsible for reviewing movies at one point in time. So I had to sit through and suffer through it. But
don't
even
care.
though if I wasn't,
Huh.
I would still sit through it.
Yeah. And so that's what I want to talk about today, right? This concept called sunk cost.
Oh,
Another
achha.
example is that JW Marriott used to sell a yearly membership, right?
Okay.
That for 10,000 rupees, you get a bunch of things, but also you get a 30% discount every time you eat there. And now, just to make sure I make full use of this, I would want to go to Marriott again and again, right? So you can see the problem here, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Why? What? Okay.
So basically, the problem is that you have already spent some money or you have spent some effort, and then you don't want that to be wasted.
True.
Right? So that's why you continue to do whatever it is that you started doing, which takes a different...
Paisa Vasool has been a very old concept.
Right, but let's understand this better. Okay, let's take an example. You have bought a stock for 200 rupees. Okay, and you think it is going to go to 300, right?
Okay.
Now, a month later, there's some news that came out because of which people are a little unsure about what this company is doing. You are a little unsure. The stock goes down from 200 to 180. Okay. Do you sell? Okay. You probably think, you know what, I've been with this, I spent 200, I've been with this for held on to it for a while. Let me, if I sell now, I'll be losing money on this stock, right? Let me see what happens.
Correct.
A different way of thinking about it is that today, if I told you, do you want to buy this stock? It is at 180. Would you buy it? Probably not. Right? So the thing is that if you didn't have the stock, you wouldn't buy it at 180. But you already have the stock at 180 and you're just sitting with it because, you know, something is different that you spent some money on it earlier.
Hold on. I am not very well versed with the stock market, but not buying a stock is not the same as selling the stock.
Why?
Because selling the stock means I have to take a loss. Not buying means I'm not putting in money at all. There is no profit, no loss.
Yeah. So see, I mean, even if you forget the transaction costs or the tax part of it, right? Still, people do make this mistake all the time, right? The main issue is that you get emotionally attached to something. Either the process, the amount you have spent on it, and then the decision really is that just by sticking with it right now, all that money that you already spent is not coming back.
That's
correct.
True.
So you have to take a decision based on what is the situation today and what is the best that is possible going forward, right?
Okay.
Right. So if there is a government which has built half a bridge, okay, and then they realize that it is way over cost and the bridge is not going to be very useful in any case because traffic patterns have shifted and so on, but they already spent so much money on the bridge. Should they continue building it or should they give up on it and do something else? Right?
Wow. That is a tough question.
No, the point is that forget how much you spent so far. From today onwards, how much extra do you have to spend and is it worth it? That's the only question worth asking, right? Because no, if the fact that you have spent so many crores on it in the past is irrelevant.
No, I have half a bridge is what I'm thinking. What do I do with half a bridge?
Okay, so that's why you're going to complete it and you have a full useless bridge instead of having a half a useless bridge. How is a full useless bridge better than a half useless bridge, right?
No, I'm guessing there'll be some use out of half a bridge.
Yeah, the question is the amount of money you have to spend more, additional money. Is it worth the some use of it? That is the real question, right? You understand the difference.
Okay.
It is not how much you have already spent. The additional money that you have to spend, that has to be worth it. And often it is not.
Okay, so let me quickly bring this back to the example of stocks that you gave because I can make sense of it in the example of the movie that we started off with because if half the movie has been bad, then will the other half of the movie be worth the time that I'm investing in that movie?
Yes.
So if that is the only question that needs to be answered, you don't have to look at the previous half of the movie.
Yes,
But
correct.
in context of the stock that I have already spent $200 on the stock.
Correct.
So now the question is, will the stock rebound enough to cross 200, or is it going further down?
So the question boils down to the following, right? Let us also take the case of taxes and transactions and so on, right? You bought at 200, it is at 180 right now. If you sell right now, you will end up paying say 2 rupees tax on it. So you will ultimately get 178 in hand.
Okay.
If someone else came to you and told you that I'm willing to give you this stock for 178, today would you buy it knowing what you know today? If the answer is no, then the history that you bought it for 200 and I'm going to make a loss and then it might go up again is irrelevant. Because every day you hold on to the stock is equivalent to you saying that I decide that today I am buying this stock at this price. Right? That's how you have to think about sunk cost. They're gone.
That's a very interesting way of thinking, and it's not really intuitive.
No, in fact, that is the problem, and that's why this episode exists.
By the way, none of this is supposed to be advice in terms of dealing with stocks. This is just an example of a stock. You can replace the word stock with any other product. We are not trying to give you stock advice or share market advice here. There are way more qualified people who will do that, and you can look at them and speak to them. But this is just an example of a product whose value is $200. It just happens that we choose the word stock.
Also, I mean, we do give stock market advice some once in a while, and it is don't invest in stocks, right? Just put in mutual funds. You are not smart enough to make money on stocks, and neither are most of the other people giving you advice. But anyway, coming back. So this sunk cost thing, you're right, it is very unintuitive. And when you first find out about it, it has an impact on you. And then you start noticing it everywhere in your life. In fact, when we were talking about this, when in the prep for this episode, we found out that Ankur himself has done this. So we are going to invite Ankur and talk about his experiences with sunk cost. And how it was also non-intuitive for him. It still is. Welcome, Ankur. So we are doing an episode talking about sunk costs today, and I hear you have a lovely story related to that.
Yeah. So as we're talking in the lunchroom just a while back, in 2018 or so, we were struggling with one of our SaaS businesses, and we realized that, hey, we're putting in like crazy amount of effort to run this business, but probably the right thing to do, as in when I first heard about this sunk cost fallacy, it was basically a video by Ankur Variku on LinkedIn. And I saw that video and like, acha, sunk cost fallacy hota hai.
Right. So basically what was happening with your business is that it really didn't make sense to continue it, but because you had spent so much money and effort on it, you were sticking with it. And when you found out from Ankur what sunk cost means, you realized I need to shut it down.
Yes, so we decided to actually shut it down, but got lucky to find a buyer for it. And then I can say I sold that business as well. But it was basically like just calling someone and saying, hey, main band kar raha hu.
Yes.
And wo to nahi ruk main khareedta. Main okay.
So basically, but now 5 years later, you still know it was the right decision.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely the right decision.
So, I mean, you know, you saw...
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this here. 2 or 3 years later, that business, they also rolled it up, just the tech into whatever they wanted to use, but the business serving the segment of clients, that offering they also discontinued.
Took them 3 years to realize their sunk cost.
Yeah, seems like.
But looks like, you know, you saw an episode on sunk cost and it changed how you look at things, right? Yeah, it doesn't seem like you have learned that lesson very well, because I heard another example in the break room today.
Okay, so I do tend to repeat the same mistakes, it seems. So during the lockdown, since I was working too much from home, I said, oh, hey, I need a better monitor to work. So let me get an external monitor. And I went, read some good articles. I said, okay, मैं 32-inch का external monitor लेगा. So I put up a 32-inch external monitor there. And then I realized my laptop, which was a old 2015 MacBook Pro, does not really support this monitor very well.
Let's stop at this point. And viewers, tell me what is the right decision at this point. Okay, think about it. based on what you know about sunk cost. Now let's go back to Ankur. What did you do?
So this laptop started to give problems. So I managed to, before it dies, exchange it for a new M1. Oh no, in fact, sorry, let me tell you, it gets more interesting.
Yeah.
I exchanged it and bought a 15-inch MacBook Pro.
MacBook Pro, yeah.
Right? One with a much better configuration. And then I realized with this same 4K monitor, that new laptop makes a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Because the fans always go on.
Think again. After this second point, what is the correct decision? Okay. Anyway, come back to Ankur.
So I then managed to find a buyer for that laptop.
Yeah.
And bought a MacBook M1.
Yeah.
So the new MacBook Air M1, no fans, no noise, like highly rated. But this one now had from 16 GB, I was coming to 8 GB RAM.
Yeah.
It started to struggle with this
4K monitor
as well. So I used it for a year, a little over a year.
Yeah.
But with the 4K monitor, I realized this 8 GB RAM isn't working.
Yeah.
So on Diwali, I again found a deal within a year and a half this time to buy a M1 Pro this time. And now it works great with my
4K monitor. Yes.
But I'm now realizing that this laptop was a little heavy, but I'm sticking with it.
Yes, yes.
So this is my fourth MacBook in like 2.5 years.
Because of a monitor.
4K monitor.
So what was the ideal decision before buying all of these 4 extra MacBooks? What should Ankur have done? What is the right answer that you want?
We will leave that as an exercise for the motivated viewer. Okay. Thank you, Ankur.
Thank you.
I still want to give a few more examples of sunk cost just to drive home the point.
Please.
So, you're married for 10 years and you're like very unhappy in the marriage. Do you divorce and move on, or do you stay with it, right? The effort that you have put into the marriage, you should really think of it as a sunk cost, right? So, not enough people do that. Another is a cell phone.
Listen, I don't think sunk cost fallacy should apply to relationships, man. Those are a different game of...
Okay, yeah, let's stick to money. Okay, this was supposed to be financial decision, so let's stick to money. So you have a cell phone and the screen broke.
I'm still hung up on the relationships bit, because I can understand why it would probably be sunk cost, but at the same time I'm like, no, you have to put in some effort, but then it's like 10 years you've put in the effort. Each one of you figure it for yourselves. Relationships, sunk cost or not.
Yes.
Let me know your thoughts.
Well, at least you should be aware of what sunk costs are and how to think about it, right? And it's easier to think in terms of money and in terms of artificial examples, okay?
All right.
So let's take an artificial example.
Please, yeah.
So I give you a 2,000 rupee coupon to a 5-star restaurant.
Nice.
And
It will get me a chai.
also I give you a 500 rupee coupon to a misal place.
It will get me lots of misal.
Yes. And then you realize that both coupons are for the same day. So you have to give up on one of them.
Okay.
Also turns out, just from your expressions, I can see you love misal. You're not going to like the food at that 5-star. Okay. So, but 2,000 rupee coupon at 5-star and misal, which one will you go to?
I personally would go to the misal
Yeah,
place.
but they have done experiments on this, and they have found that often around 57% in situations like this, 57% will go with the more expensive place, even then though they know that they are going to enjoy the less expensive place more.
Okay.
Why? Because our brains are weird, right? We just think, I'm giving up on 2,000 rupee. Value.
I can see the financial aspect of that thing. Why you would probably think that you're losing out on 2,000 rupees worth of.
In fact, this is much stronger if you bought the 2,000 rupee one and bought the 500 rupee one and then realize that one of them has to be given up. Right now, it was real money that you were talking about that you had spent. But the fact is that money is gone.
Correct.
Right now, whichever one you choose, the amount of money that you lost remains the same. So then, will you choose the 5-star or the misal? Correct?
That's an interest. See, this is why this keeps throwing me for a loop, because try as I might, I can't let go of the fact that I have already spent money on that.
Correct.
Because of probably because of the way I was brought up, maybe something to do with the way I was taught to treat money. That I need to get full value for the money I have already spent.
Correct. And right. The point is that if getting value for that money involves spending more money or more time or more effort, right? Then you have to ask yourself, is normally the way the normal world works is that if you have spent 100 rupees in the past, then to complete something you have to spend 100 less. And that's why our intuition tells us that you should pay attention to that 100.
Right.
But while you were spending the 100, if the situation changed and the amount you have to spend more is more than what you expected, then you have to ask yourself, forget the 100 that I spent. This additional money that I have to spend, is it worth it? Right?
And even
So-
if it is not additional money, I just remembered that we did an episode on the dollar value of
money,
time.
yes. So time is also important, time and effort.
So
yes.
that equation comes into factor. We'll
Yeah.
put the link in the show notes if it is
so
already
let's take
up.
one more example, right?
What I'm basically trying to get at is that this is years and years of conditioning that I'm trying to undo.
Yes, of course. And it has. That's why this episode exists. In fact, that's why all of FutureIQ exists, to undo years and years of conditioning in your brain. And in some cases, or in this particular case, it's like 1,000,000 years of conditioning.
Okay.
You will see.
All right, so I'm not the only person to
Yes.
blame here. So
Yes.
I'm happy. But why does this even happen? Like,
Yeah. So they have scientists have studied this. Okay.
scientists study a lot of things.
Yes.
Scientist?
They have found 2 or 3 interesting effects in our brain because of which this happens. Okay? One is called loss aversion and the other is called the endowment effect, and I'll explain both of them. right?
Okay. Loss aversion. Let's begin
Loss
with that.
aversion basically means that, if you were to gain 100 rupees versus you lose 100 rupees, will the happiness from the 100 rupees that you get be roughly equal to the sadness you get from losing the 100 rupees? No. Which will be more?
The loss.
The loss will be more. I mean,
We
in
always
general,
feel loss more
Yeah.
than we get
yeah.
feel
And
happiness.
let's take a couple of examples. Now, this time I'm going to use artificial examples from the research studies to make sure you understand the point well.
This example itself was very powerful.
Correct,
100
yeah.
rupees gain versus 100 rupees loss. The loss is infinitely more.
For example, if you go into an office, right, and there's a lovely mug, right, and you ask people, how much are you willing to pay for this mug?
Okay.
Right? Of course, what is the, you come to some price that they'll say
$100.
$100. Instead, you go to that office, give everybody that mug, and now go around saying, how much are you willing to take to give me the mug?
How much are you willing to sell the mug for?
Yes. And that number is not just normally if you were rational, it should be 100, right?
It should be.
Basically, the mug is worth 100. That's why you paid 100 for it. But once you have the mug, then you are unwilling to part
But
with
wait,
it.
they were given the mug for free.
Yeah.
As in, they got the mug.
Yeah.
Maybe for free or for 100 or for whatever.
Yes.
But then they are not willing to.
Give it up for 100. They need 150 or 200 or in some cases 250 to give up the mug.
Listen, I understand the concept of making a profit on it. So if they bought the mug for 100,
That's different. No, they were given.
okay, they were just given.
So just, the difference in the price of a mug you want versus that a mug you already have and you have to give it away.
But they didn't even have the mug forever. They had it like.
Doesn't matter. That's the endowment effect.
Oh.
Once it is yours, and this is, salespeople use this very well. Okay. If you go and you're trying to buy a car, right? First there'll be all kinds of things and various negotiations happen. And then you say, okay, fine, you have decided that you're going to take this car. Okay. So the salesperson will go through a whole bunch of things to ensure that, now you start thinking of it as your car. Okay. And then they will start tacking on, oh, by the way, there is this extra charge for this, there is a this, there is a that, and so on. If all of those charges were told to you before, you might have said, okay, I don't want this car, I can't afford this, is not worth it. Right? But now that you have started thinking of it as your car, okay, the endowment effect kicks in.
I just realized I spent way more on my car than I should have.
And it is
I literally did. Like, I didn't need any of the bells and whistles that came added with my car. I genuinely didn't need them.
So that's basically the endowment effect. Endowment effect means when you have something, you value it more. When it is yours, you value it more than when it wasn't yours in the first
That car
place.
wasn't even mine to begin with.
Yes.
It was
It was already yours in your mind, and that's what the salesperson was.
So basically, if
banking
you're
on.
going out to buy a car, decide what you want before you walk into the showroom and talk with
In
the
fact, yeah, that
salesperson.
is one of the takeaways of this episode, right? But loss aversion, another example, right? And this is actual research that was done.
Okay.
People were given season tickets to the opera,
Okay.
costing $15.
Okay.
Now, 1/3 of them were just given that and told, go ahead, watch these operas.
Okay.
1/3 were given a $2 discount.
Okay.
And 1/3 were given a $7 discount on the original $15. Okay. So the money was actually given back to them. All of these people bought $15 worth of opera tickets.
But some of them got money
got
back.
a discount, right? Then the researchers studied
How many
and saw how many of the shows were watched by these three groups. Would you like to guess what happened?
The people who got the $7 discount watched the most shows.
Least. Yes, because
They paid the least, so they watched the least. Sorry, correct. Yeah.
The people who paid the most watched the most because you already spent $15 on it. Let's get the maximum value out of it, right? So I mean, not only are you averse to losing money and your sunk cost and all of that, but the effect depends on how much the
This
amount
reminds me
involved.
of something really interesting that I heard once somewhere, where someone said, "Don't give stuff away for free if you want it to be valued."
Yes, absolutely.
So this actually falls into the loss aversion thing, because once you give stuff away for free, then the value of that in the person's head is zero.
Correct.
Which means they don't really have to recover any value out of it.
Yes.
I'm trying to imagine if I can make both of them work with the endowment effect, like give something away for free and then make people value it by asking it back from them. That's actually an interesting sales strategy.
There's a whole bunch of things there, right? Because they give you something, so like a subscription where either it is a free subscription, it'll start charging a little later, or they give you discounts in the first. They give you discounted prices for the first time or for 6 months and so on, and then it'll start charging more later, and so on. All of these they want you to start thinking of this as something you have, something you get used to, and then losing it.
Remember 1 GB per day free?
Yes.
That is what happened there.
Yes. So these are tricks they use all the time.
Man, there are, I know for a fact that the advertising industry uses like a ton of these tricks, and all of these are well-researched psychological phenomena.
Yeah, PhDs in psychology get hired by Google and Facebook for this reason.
Behavioral economics.
There is a well-known quote, right, which says that I saw the best minds of my generation spending all their intelligence on trying to get people to click on boxes. So
it is true.
Yeah.
It is true. The brightest minds of our generation are working to make sure that you click on that ad that you're trying to desperately avoid.
Yeah.
There we go. So essentially what you're telling me is capitalism is to blame for all of this nonsense that we are going through.
Surely not, right? Actually not. This is fundamentally built into your brain. And do you know how I know this?
How?
Because it is built into the brains of monkeys also. Okay, like you said, it is not years of conditioning. It is millions of years of conditioning. So they did experiments with capuchin monkeys. Okay. To look for specifically...
Capuchin monkeys, I think, are Marcel from Friends, if any of you watch the series Friends.
Pretty smart, okay?
They are.
The capuchin monkeys, they trained capuchin monkeys to understand the concept of supply and demand. Okay. And the prices of things and so on. Okay. I won't get into that today. Today I want to talk about the fact that they checked out loss aversion and endowment effect on capital
on capuchin monkeys.
Capuchin monkeys. Okay. So these monkeys had these little discs which were being used as money, coins, right? And you could exchange a coin for a fruit or for a cereal.
Okay.
Right? Now, There were two experimenters. One of them used to show one piece of fruit, and when the monkey showed up there, this person with a 50-50 chance would put another second fruit there, right? So on an average, the monkey got 1.5 fruits.
Fair.
There was a different experimenter who used to always show 2 fruits, and when the monkey showed up, just before giving the fruits, 50-50 chance he would take away one of the fruit. Okay. Would you like to guess which of these two the monkeys preferred?
The first one.
First one, even though both were exactly the same, but in the first one, you were gaining half a fruit unexpectedly. In the second one, you were losing half a fruit unexpectedly, and the second is much worse. Okay, that's loss aversion.
There is a better way to explain it. Happiness is equal to reality minus expectations. The expectation was you were going to get 2 fruits.
Yes.
The reality was you got only 1 fruit most of the time or some of the time. Therefore, happiness was lower. Minus 1 fruit.
Yes, correct. So how did they check endowment effect? Okay. What they did was they adjusted fruit and cereal quantities to a point where the monkeys preferred them both exactly equally. Right?
Okay. So half the monkeys preferred cereal?
No.
Half the time?
Same monkey, half the time cereal. In fact, they adjusted it to the point where if you repeat the experiment 12 times, half the time they would take fruit, half the time they would take cereal. So now the experiments are sure that preferences are equal.
Okay.
Then they gave the monkeys cereal. Okay. And then they asked the monkey whether it wants to trade for a fruit. Okay, you would expect that about half the time the monkey should trade just for variety.
Yeah.
87% of the time they didn't.
87% of
yes, right? Now you can think there is an explanation for this, right?
Okay.
Explanation should be like, why bother? Ugits kashala, right? I mean, there is a...
Ugits kashala is a very Marathi phrase, which is typically used a lot in Pune. I can't translate it properly. Like, I can't translate the sentiment of Ugits Kashala. But if you can find someone who can explain, if you can find a Marathi person who can explain Ugits Kashala to you, please get them to do it. You will enjoy it.
Yeah. So just to make sure that this is not because of inertia or transaction overhead.
Okay.
Right? They said, okay, fine, we will give you a fruit plus a piece of oatmeal. And still the monkeys refused to exchange it. Okay. In fact, and to make sure how much oatmeal to give, in a different experiment, they tried different amounts of oatmeal to a point where monkeys were taking just the oatmeal in exchange for a coin.
Okay.
So they
essentially established the values of the oatmeal, the cereal, the fruit.
Correct. So the oatmeal, just the oatmeal by itself was worth it for the monkey to exchange with a coin.
So that piece of oatmeal and the fruit, the monkey wasn't willing to exchange for the cereal.
Correct. Because now suddenly the cereal, which was equal in value when it wasn't the monkeys, but now it is the monkeys and it's no longer equal in value.
We have monkey brains.
In fact, they said, okay, maybe, just eating the cereal is easier, whereas take the fruit and all that, something effort might be different. So they did the same experiment with walnuts. Okay, there is a walnut inside a shell versus a walnut that is already open. Okay, of course the one inside the shell, there has to be broken and eaten.
A lot of effort.
When you give the monkey a walnut with shell, the monkey refused to exchange in most cases, a majority of the time, refused to exchange it for a opened walnut, even though that gives you the same pleasure and less effort.
See, this is where I'm different from the monkeys, okay? If you give me a walnut and if you then offer me an opened walnut, like a walnut without the shell, I will go for the walnut without the shell.
The psychologists at Facebook would like to disagree with you on this point, and they have a list of things where you behave exactly like this. Okay.
I hate being called a monkey, and more importantly, I hate being proven that I act like a monkey.
Yeah. So the point is,
I want to see the psychologists at Facebook. I have some choice words from them.
Right. In fact, what we see from Ankur's case is that even when you know that this is going to happen, it's still not easy to avoid it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the message to everybody is that what you said earlier with respect to the car, figure out and write down your preferences before time. Okay. And then look at that list and ask yourself, why am I changing it? Right?
Yeah.
Because the thing is that here this difference is between system 1 and system 2. Okay, if system 2 gets involved, it knows that I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
But most of the time system 1 goes ahead and makes a decision and then forces system 2 to come up with a good explanation for why am I doing this.
We've done an episode on
Yes.
this system 1 versus system 2, one of our earliest episodes. Go check it out. We'll put a link
Yeah.
in the description, of course, show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know what you want to know.
Huh.
There are different people, okay? Some are more system 1 thinkers, some are more system 2 thinkers. And system 2 thinkers are more likely to fall for these things. System 1 thinkers
yeah.
are more likely to fall for this.
Understandably, because your instinct is, in this particular case, the instinct is counterintuitive to what is actually the smart thing to do. So
Right.
I can
Yeah.
figure out, I can imagine why.
So it would be nice for you to know whether you are a system 1 thinker or a system 2 thinker.
I thought all of us were system 1 thinkers by default.
Well, no. As in, all of us are significant system 1 thinkers, but some are more.
Achha,
Okay.
like that.
And the good news is that not all psychologists are evil. There are some good ones also. So they have created an actual test called the REI.
Okay.
Link is there. You should go check it out and see what the REI says about you. If it says you are a more system 1 thinker than other people, you should be more careful, or at least drag a system 1 2 friend with you.
System 2 friend with you. Yeah. Fascinating, man. Is there a way to train yourself to become more of a system 2 thinker? I know it's a very weird question, but
don't know that, but I can tell you situations in which this doesn't apply as much.
Okay.
Right? One is that privileged people are significantly less loss averse, right? Which makes sense. I mean, if you have lots of stuff, then losing something doesn't affect you as much as it would affect other people.
correct.
Also, it depends on the culture. So I'm sure that some of this training can happen. So they have done research and they see that Eastern European people are most loss averse, whereas African people for some reason are the least loss averse, right? I can imagine them being, happy-go-lucky. It's like, don't worry, be happy.
Yeah, but the happiest countries are in Scandinavia, which is right next to Eastern
Well,
Europe.
that's a different issue. Okay, happiness is just pretty much directly correlated to how much money you have. Okay, but
more money, more happiness.
Yeah, but there are also loss averse.
Wait a sec. There's something about endowment effect that I suddenly remembered. It is completely probably unrelated, but maybe also related. Do you remember the Monty Hall problem?
yes.
So and we'll do an entire episode probably on this later, but just tell me in this, in as short way as possible, does the endowment effect have anything to do with the choice required in the Monty Hall problem?
Not really. I think it's just more a question of that
Counterintuitive math. Okay.
Right?
Alright, we'll do an episode on the Monty Hall problem later. Meanwhile, if you want to look it up, please look it up. We'll try and put links in the description, but I don't want to spoil it for people who don't know about it. And we'll get back to that. Sorry, you were saying about loss aversion.
So I think basically I want to say that one, find out if you are a systems 1 thinker or a systems 2 thinker. If you are systems 1, then be extra careful about these things. Even otherwise, you should be careful.
Okay.
Find out your preferences ahead of time, or take help of other friends to point it out to you.
Okay.
Take friends to help you figure out whether you are falling prey to the sunk cost fallacy. And
live your life, enjoy.
Yes.
Shrikant, Naveen,
Thank you.
FutureIQ.
Thank you for watching till the end. If you liked this episode, check out these others. You might like them also. And please share with your friends. I'm sure they will also like these. Thank you.